We now just begin our third and final session. It has a slightly different format. We're talking about communication, and our idea was to let you hear a little bit from 5 different individuals, 5 different countries, and 5 different points of view of communication. So vehicles, different vehicles for communication. So each of the speakers will give a very short presentation on the vehicle, their specific vehicle for communication, after which we'll have a discussion among them and then with the audience about the effectiveness, the pros, the cons, anything that we want to take away from that. So I would like to, I will introduce everybody at first, and they will come one by one to give short presentations. We have with us today, we're very happy to have with us today, Josiane Giammarinaro, the director of the Ecole Boulle in France. We have Zsolt József Simon, a ceramicist from Hungary. Nadine Vischer Klein, the director and chairwoman of Tresor Contemporary Craft from Switzerland. Romain Juilha, project manager for art, culture, and creation at the Ateliers d'Art de France. And finally, Paolo Ferrarini, from a journalist working here in Italy for Cool Hunting USA. So, Josiane, please.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I'm very sorry to speak so bad English in such a beautiful place. So, communication on craftsmanship is a real cause for reflection. Do craftsmen have a specific means of communication? The answer to this question is to be found in the workshop, where communication is silent. There, students and master craftsmen work on matter with their tools, and looks and gesture are all they need to communicate. The transmission of know-how takes place in the silence of the workshop, in a closed universe where its most important is to master that know-how. But today's craftsman must not only know how to master his art, he must also know how to make his art known to a wider audience. The object that he creates in his workshop must be displayed and even sold. Ecole Boulle is a conservatory of craftsmanship, where know-how is our priority. And yet, it is essential that our students also master the art of communication, for their professional future is at stake. Alors, I show you all the workshop. Voilà. The workshop traditional tools are therefore completed with digital tools which enrich our teaching. Oral and writer communication skills are demanded in order to validate our diplomas. These are acquired with various methods: publication, diploma theses, articles on the school website, participation in various national or international events, European Heritage Days, Cumulus Conference, partnerships with companies and institutions, exhibition. Indeed, 3 Ecole Boulle students are taking part in Homo Faber, 2 as ambassadors and 1 who is exhibiting as a Bettencourt Schuler prize winner. Our students understand the importance of efficient communication. When they present their work in order to compete for prizes and other contexts. If they do not dispose all of the necessary tools, then they must be capable of enlisting the assistance of the right professional. For example, a real photographer to post photo on Instagram. Today, the teaching of craftsmanship in France has involved. A new diploma has been launched, and within this framework, the art school work together as a network in liaison with the university system. Ecole Boulle partner are the three other Parisian applied art schools, Duperret, Estienne, and Samar, and we are also members of the Commu ESAM, a university structure which brings together a large number of teaching institutions, such as the Conservatory of Art and Craft, École du Louvre, and so much. The wealth and diversity of this network facilitate collaboration and the involvement of teachers who specialize in communication. Workshop with students of journalism, business, and engineering provide those who are learning craft with the opportunity to encounter different universes of communication. For the future of craftsmanship, we must continue to teach excellence in the know-how, essentially to our crafts, while increasing the emphasis on how to make our crafts know. So in French, we say, the most important is savoir-faire et faire savoir. Thank you.
Thank you, Josiane. Zsolt.
So what do you think what the craftsman needs first to communicate? The first thing that I experienced that to be self-confident. If you are a craftsman, you like much more working with the objects than to meeting with people. Some of us concentrating just working in the workshop and not going out, and most of us just waiting for people to visit, and they believe that many people, just because they make nice things, will visit them. But if nobody knows what are you doing, you won't have any customers. So this is why when I realized that, and I became self-confident of my work, then I started to research of other people's work. Then I realized if the most working part of communicating was Facebook. So even if I was a person who didn't like so much the technology, I had to learn and had to be acceptable for this kind of network. So I found a lot of friends on the Facebook. So I started to build a network with friends who could show me a next possibility for a symposium, for next biennial, next triennial, or next contest. And next contest. So I met with a lot of people, and this was always like spreading out, having friends from very far, and then meeting with them on a symposium or an exhibition. When I got to receive some awards, then on the network, on the internet, there were many pictures of mine just spreading out, and because I realized that if I make a nice piece and then I'm self-confident, I also need nice pictures of my pieces. So I went to a professional. It's very basic, but I had to experience that. If you have no nice picture of your pieces, the people will not realize that the piece of yours is nice. So I went to a professional photographer, asked to make nice pictures of them, and I use that kind of pictures to apply for these kinds of places. So in the beginning, I wanted to make my income based on selling my pieces. So I wanted to be a professional artist. I didn't want to go to the school because I realized if I teach 5 days a week, I don't have time to make something that I invented, because I felt that what I invented, which is a technique based on working with a plaster, will be lost. So I had to develop, and started to communicate with the galleries, just sending them email one by one, if they are interested in my work or not. But it didn't work. Okay, I met again with other artists, and they told me, oh, it will never work because the galleries and everybody like to find the artist. Oh man, how to go? What a big problem. I mean, I just realized. But at least all of the galleries I work with now, all of them found me just because I placed most of the pictures of mine on Facebook, and the other people who liked my pictures shared, and they appeared in blogs and every other places. So just one by one, the galleries started contacting me. Yeah, for that, we needed one thing: have nice pieces, nice pictures, and spread out on Facebook. I have a smartphone, but it's just 1 year old. I never had a phone and smartphone and mobile before. I just bought this because I realized on Instagram, which is the the most new media to share your pictures, is very useful. So in the beginning, in the first 2 months, when I wanted to build this Instagram site for myself, I asked my girlfriend to upload pictures, because at that time I didn't have. So I had it just because of this reason. So the gallery who found me, this is related to Italy. I received a prize that time. So now, the communication now is in between meeting people who I can reach by invitation, those people who have seen the pictures of my pieces, because they know that I give lectures, I give workshops, and I make pieces. So sometimes I go to Japan to give a lecture and exhibit my piece in New York, just because the people find pictures of my pieces. That was the only thing that I had to reach to get into this position. It's now in Faenza, Premio, Faenza, which is anniversary of 60th also, and I don't know what's that. So that's all I think. Thank you.
Nadine?
Actually, Barbara has said my lecture is far too long, so I decided I am actually going to read my captions so it's not too long, and at the same time, I think showing what Tresor is about with a little film and showing what communication is about is the beginning. But first of all, thank you, Barbara, and thank you, Jacques, for giving us the possibility to present Tresor to you all. I am the economy side of this whole place, I think, with loads of museums and institutions. I'm very honored about this. What is Tresor? Tresor is an art fair that focuses on contemporary objects created by artists responding to craft tradition. Now, this is the new way of how we talk about it. I would love a discussion, as I said before. I would love to have the word art disappear and the word craft come up and stay there high up. But let's start with a little presentation. As a brief overview, I'm showing you some images from our launch here. Our hosts, Michelangelo Foundation, showing Doppia Fema, a collaboration between a designer and a uniquely skilled craftsperson at Tresor 2017, a great adventure. It's important to us to show the output of art and design schools. The luxury goods students from Ecole Lausanne worked with Matteo Gonnet and his excellent class workshop to create a chandelier which had its debut at Tresor. Each year we will be showing a private collection to illustrate patronage and how collectors support artists. You see here an important private collection of glass from the British artist Anna Dickinson. Presenting craft beyond the connotation of the domestic, our artistic director curated spaces with large-scale works measuring over 2 meters each. Tresor shines a new light on traditional craft techniques through living craft tradition. Here is a gallery from China showing contemporary blanc de Chine from Derhua, China. We encourage exhibitors to have a simple installation to create space to view individual works, a bit different to the way, for instance, your masterpieces of Europe were shown. The works are shown in a way you would exhibit at an art fair, to be able to show that these unique single pieces are worth looking at on their own. Crosspoint Gallery from South Korea focused on just one artist with giant pebbles in mother of pearl, taking an old technique into the 21st century. And very important for us is our educational program called Encounters. This includes films, a lot of seminars, panel discussions, and I hope you will all come to Tresor and also take part in this very important section for us. And finally, this is what I feel sometimes. Perhaps you can all agree on this. We look forward to welcoming you next September, where we're going to have our second edition at Tresor next year. Please do not forget to give me your business card if you would like to be invited to our professional day, just to be sure that you actually get a personal invitation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nadine. Roma.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to present Ateliers de France and its marketplace, Empreinte, which is also can be a very good way of communication about craft. So just before a quick words about Ateliers de France, which is the main association in France dedicated to fine craft professionals. We've been created in 1861, and we are actually gathering more than 6,000 crafts workers, craft artists, and manufacturers all around the country. We are actually having one purpose: defending and promoting the role of the artisan, of the creator, in society in France, with two main missions, actually. The first one is very institutional. We are the voice of the professionals, with the public partners, obviously. And we are also here to develop all the economic tools for the studios, for the income, actually, of the studios. For example, regarding the economy, we are developing our own fairs. We are actually at the origins of Maison et Objet, created in 1995 with Reed Exhibition. We are also owner of the International Heritage Fair. The next edition is in October this year, the end of October. Obart, which is dedicated to craft in the regions in France, and Révélation, which is our main fine craft event in the Grand Palais next year in May. We also have lots of actions promoting craft like prizes, contests. We also founded a foundation in 2011 dedicated obviously to fine craft. We've got prizes. We have a new editions department actually dedicated to the thought and the literature about craft. And we are actually organizing many exhibitions in France and abroad. But I'm going to focus on our network of outlets, all dedicated to craft in Paris and France. We actually have 4 spaces in Paris and 2 in southern France. I'm going to focus on Empreinte, which is the largest concept store dedicated to craft in Europe, maybe in the world, I'm not sure. Maybe let's have a look on the video first. With the sound. Thank you. This is a marketplace Ateliers de France launched in 2016 in September. We are actually, this is 4 floors building, open to every kind of techniques and know-how, all listed officially in France. We are actually gathering more than 1,000 pieces, and we have 2 collections a year. The selection is made by the team of Empreinte, and every member of Ateliers de France is welcome to apply, actually. This is only open to our members so far. The thing is that this is more than a marketplace. This is also we spread our positive values to everyone who come into this wonderful place. You're in very central Paris, you're in a wonderful building, and above all, you can have time to discover what craft is in its largest definition. You have a space dedicated to, so here you can see you have tableware, you have jewels, you have focus on themes or know-how or materials, techniques. Here you have wood on the screen. We also have a projection room at the basement of the building. You've got at the last floor, this is about the thought. We have got a library, so we are trying actually to propose a kind of immersion into craft. So this is open from Monday to Saturday, 11 to 7 p.m. Every day, and we're really pleased to. We also have the online platform. This is not only open to our members. This is open to every crafts workers based in France. Actually, this is me, and thank you very much. Thank you.
Paolo, thank you. Thank you very much, Romain.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Paolo Ferrarini, and I am the European correspondent of Cool Hunting. For those who don't know Cool Hunting, it's basically a digital publication. So there's basically nothing made with your own hands. Everything is just made on a typewriter or on a touch screen. So it's purely digital. If we can start with the presentation. It was founded in 2003 in New York City by Josh Rubin and Evan Orenstein, and it was just born out of a passion, just describing cool stuff. So when I started writing for these guys, I asked them, give me a definition of what is cool, what is coolness? And they said, coolness is a feeling, okay? So when you see something, you say, oh, cool. But how can we define that feeling? Is when you see something for the first time and you realize you know it. So I was like, how can you see something for the first time and you know it already? They said, it's a mystery. It's like love. It's like when you fall in love. It's like the coup de foudre, colpo di fulmine. You see something and you see yourself in that something. So our editorial approach is that, just to talk about things that we feel as editors, as correspondents, we feel that they give us something that is more of just a cerebral thing, but something much deeper than that. So for this reason, we have, this is just a timeline, but I think we can skip that. Cool Hunting is basically a place where to talk about things that we think they have value. Okay? So there is no time limit in that. We can talk about the latest app, so something purely technological, or we can talk about traditional crafts from rural Japan. Or at the same time, we can talk about the latest architecture that was built in Portugal, or the cruise ship that goes all around Antarctica for 6 months a year. So there is basically no limit apart from that. Of course, in the past few years, this is some of the brands that we have talked about. Of course, there's also, from the New York headquarters, there's also activities of consultancy, of course, with companies about what is coolness, because this is the business model of the platform. But, for example, here I've made a list of some recent articles I have written from Europe, of course. And you can see, for example, these are hat makers from Florence that have become incredibly popular thanks to Instagram and social media. They were not artisans. They discovered, they inherited a couple of instruments and machines to make hats, and they wanted to make something out of it. So they sort of recreated a tradition that was lost. They learned how to be craftsmen, and they did that. So they kind of rediscovered this aspect of coolness. Or something can be related also to things that are apparently super high-tech. Foscarini is a lighting brand from this area, and they're just off Venice, and they're very famous for their super high-tech look, but sometimes they use materials such as cement, which is another high-tech material that is made by artisans not far from Brescia, so they have super limited editions. So whenever we found this kind of clash, that makes sense. Something incredibly new, something incredibly contemporary with something that has been there for many, many years. So that's where we think there's some interesting story to tell. This is shoes, men's shoes made in Naples. This is a French brand, of course, Christian Louboutin, and this is the factory in Naples. This was one of the first factory visits in these small Neapolitan factories that I've made. And I was very shocked because at the beginning I thought, why these shoes are so expensive? But after seeing the artisans at work, after talking to them, after seeing them working To me, I was totally ignorant about real craft, and to me, they look like samurais. They were doing those gestures that they felt to me like they were doing martial arts, but they were cutting leather, but with such an intensity, that was that. And then all the processes, all the steps. At the end of the factory visit, I asked myself, before it was, how come it's so expensive? At the end, I was like, how come it's so cheap? They should cost more. There's more than that. And that made me realize a lot about craftsmanship. And this is also what we try to convey to our readers. So it can be big brands. For example, this is Bohemian Glass from Lasby. It can be smaller brands. It doesn't matter the size. It doesn't matter how old, how ancient is the brand. As long as we find that tiny bit of love in the moment when we meet that incredible craft. This is an example of an indigo dyeing factory from Japan. So this is our approach. We also have a marketplace on cool hunting, and we also sell very well, I have to say, some crafts. Some specific, but every craft is a limited edition made on purpose for us. So it's a collaboration. It's a real collaboration. So we have things that we can share also with artisans. This is something that we do only for Christmas time. It's a sort of Christmas list, and it goes sold out usually before the summer. So we start selling the Christmas gifts before the summer, and also this year it's already sold out. So we're thinking about making it even bigger than that. And we don't do that with technology. So we don't sell phones and computers. We do that with the best crafts from unexpected areas. One last thing, Cool Hunting a few years ago made a very, very interesting project with, they made a temporary store on Fifth Avenue with just crafts from New York City, which is something that you do not associate the city of New York as a city of crafts, but there's hundreds of great craftsmen also in New York City. Okay, so I think that my 5 minutes are over, so I would like, thank you. Is this working? Yes. So I would like to invite here on the stage Josiane, Simon, Nadine, and Romain, so we can start discussing a bit about the super interesting things that we have heard. Okay. Josiane, I really like this expression of savoir-faire and faire savoir. This is very, very interesting. Also in terms of education, which is one of the, I believe personally, one of the most important things when it comes to craft. Education, not just in terms of educating craftspeople, of course, which is the first thing, but also educating people to understand craft. And you say that in your school you pay a lot of attention to communication, of course. So I was wondering, is there a special technique, a special way by which the students learn to make communication? Of course, students learn to make beautiful objects, but is there like you do with workshops, or you make them communicate maybe the things that their colleagues do, or what, is there a special recipe for that?
It's not so clearly. You know, they learn communication with our master in a workshop, like transmission, also with a teacher of philosophy, teacher of art, applied art, and also when we made a workshop with other students, and but when they have their diploma, when they return, they also said we are not very well formed to the communication. It's one of our problems. So now we think the formation we integrate more the communication. They have different sessions, different, not workshop, intervention with specialists of communication, but it's very young in our formation because it's a traditional school and also with more innovation in the material, but not in the communication. And also for our school, I need to communicate much more. Because we made many things, but we can't tell very well what we do, you know? Yes. I think it's not very in our tradition education in France. So you have to progress.
Yes. And I believe that Simone could be a great teacher for your students. You pointed out one very, very important element, that is the loneliness of the artisan. Okay, the artisans, they're too shy sometimes. They believe, of course, a lot in what they do, but maybe they fear they will spoil it when it goes outside. So there's this constant feeling of, oh no, it's mine, yes, it's of the world. So in that movement, communication is absolutely fundamental. And we think that maybe technology makes us lonely, but you told us that craftsmanship, it's a kind of totally different kind of loneliness. So how can we break that? I mean, you gave us some very clear examples of how to make the artisans go out in the outside world and tell their stories.
The first thing that I had to realize was that I have no more chance. In Hungary, there are no galleries. In Hungary, you can share your ideas with your other friends who are also artists or craftsmen, but it's not enough if you know that you know something which should be developed, like especially the technique and the pieces I make. I could have a good relationship with the other artists as a teacher, and just on the weekend we could make some art pieces all together because there is a good community with your friends, artists, but it's not enough if you not taking care of your own soul, but you are taking care of the thing that you invented, which would be lost without you. So this is why I had to break through. I was a bio-ecological person. I thought I could live even without using electricity. But and I realized that it wouldn't work. It would disappear if I wouldn't share, because I'm not a baker. You know, if you would be a baker, one village would be enough to continue your profession. But it was very visible from the very beginning, what I do should be shared from all around the world, because in Hungary or in my village, I wouldn't find any people who would buy enough to make me living. So just if you see the effect, I mean, if you think forward, I mean, you think out of your workshop, then you can see something that you need in the future to do. That's all.
Absolutely, absolutely clear. Nadine, how, in this sense, of course, trade fairs are a very important element for the promotion of the activity of craftsmen. So you kind of force them to get out of their workshops. I was wondering, how is the trade fair evolving? How is it changing in terms of communication? Is there something that you specifically put in action so to make it more interesting for a larger audience and more useful for artisans, of course?
I think so, absolutely. I think what Zsolt just said is really important. We need to get a marketplace going, a visibility going. And when I heard Jacques and Jean yesterday talk about going from one doorbell to the next and ringing the bell and so on, I mean, Brian Kennedy, my artistic director, and I traveled for a year all over Europe trying to find galleries and trying to then persuade those galleries to take the plunge and come to a fair and show the artists. We are now at the stage where probably Art Basel was in the 60s. That means where there's a great dynamic, great excitement about craft, and I think we have to really reach out and grab this excitement. I mean, the Loewe Foundation is giving a prize for craft of €50,000, which is way beyond the Turner Prize for any fine art object. So already there, they're doing a brilliant job by showing craftspeople outside of the context or the meaning of craft at the moment and giving them a platform which is very high level. We also have Gagosian, who had an exhibition of Edmond de Waal, which now, he wouldn't have done that 3 years ago. This is totally new, that the awareness of craftsmanship is suddenly reaching people that it hasn't reached before. And I'm really excited that, for instance, House and Wirth have just announced that they are probably the second best gallery in the world of fine art. And they have suddenly announced that they are opening in Somerset a craft gallery called Make. So there's a lot of movement coming, and I think we all have to literally, we all a link. We need to know what our needs are, and we need to join together and make that chain work and link up with each other. And I feel an art fair is a really great thing to do this, mainly also, I mean, like Zsolt also, you were represented by Pulse, you were represented by Officina Safi, I think, at some point. This is important for the artists to be able to be seen outside of their little village, as you say. And a fair is the right place for that, still is the right place for that. But it's not that you only can have galleries selling. The platform for young artists, not meaning young in age, but young in handling materials, and the platform for the education is really important to have this whole mix at the fair.
Thank you. Romain, when you were describing how you work, I thought that it's very similar to the work of a journalist or a curator, because a store can be a sort of magazine. If you talk about a concept store, I mean, there are so many elements that go together. I was wondering, how do you source? You said a few things about that. How do you find the right, how do you understand when the things are the right ones to be in there? Is it just a matter of instinct, or is there a bit of strategy in that?
You mean in the marketplace, in
Yes.
the concept store? Actually, there's a team making the selection. I'm actually not part of this precise team, actually, but on the contrary, Empreinte is open to every member.
Okay.
So there's no real selection, actually. Everyone can be exhibited. So this is quite the opposite. But we've got a bunch of tools and operations and actions where selection has to be. And most of the time for juries, for selections, for our gallery collection, which is the Marais, we invite people from different fields really committed to craft to have their angles, their point of view. I think it's the same for the Tresor Commission or for most of the fairs, in the world. For our own fair Révélation, we've got 14 personalities gathered to make the best selection. Sorry for the...
So it's a mixture of different, completely different abilities that go together in a contemporary way, absolutely. I don't know, do we have time for one more question? Or okay. Sometimes the communication, this is an open question for everyone, so anybody wants to answer. Sometimes the communication of craftsmanship is very similar to a fairy tale rather than a real story. And sometimes it makes people think that it's fake because a fairy tale is fake. I understand that that's a very, very delicate border, but it's very important to get to know the value and the price also sometimes of good things, of well-made things, should be very much close to reality. Okay, so do you have any thoughts to share about that? How can we skip from the fairy tale to the story of craftsmanship? Can we skip from just an imaginary world to something that is a document?
May I answer that? Sure. I've just come now from an exhibition which Tresor did in an 18th century house, which is closed yesterday, so if I have rings out here, you know why. But it was showing craft in a classical setting of old palais in Basel, and giving people the possibility to actually communicate with the objects, touch them, hear the stories behind them, see the price. We are very much for transparency in pricing at our fair, and also at this exhibition. The price was marked because we want to attract a lot of young people to come in and actually experience materials, experience what you can do, dream, look at this fairy tale and make it real. I mean, we all love fairy tales, but at the end we also want the excitement of an object, and we want to be able to, the tactile and the haptic is very, very important. You have so many sort of design furniture which might be beautiful but quite sterile in a way. You have paintings you can't touch, and suddenly the young people are interested in getting a feel again. They keep sitting on their computer and they want to touch things. And we had about, I'd say about 40 people come through between the age of 20 and 30, and the reaction was quite amazing. They were all really excited and spent more than 4 hours in the exhibition, which made me very happy, of course, but it shows it's necessary.
I think it's important to tell a story about an object, but the more important is the emotion. And in our school, it's our priority. But I know when we had to leave with your job, we had to send some object. But the first thing is to transmit, to try to transmit how to make this emotion. And after, it's a personal experience for the craftsman or woman, or for the other person. And you can tell a big story with good communication. If the object is not, creates nothing, the story is not, for me.
To me, maybe one of the main characteristics of a craft is the natural connection with the matter, the materials, and there's a very intimate connection which has to be there, actually, because this may be the main difference with the art with the big A. This is the transferred matter, and maybe you need a special context just to be, to get time, to be educated. So this is what Nadine told about, to get a very nice context. And actually this is the environment is really important, because this is kind of new, actually, craft in terms of art. So I think that people need to be sensibilized to these special thing, which is more and more actually visible thanks to Michelangelo, thanks to fairs and foundations in the world and associations. So I think that this notion of intimate and the connection with material is very important, just to foresee every event about craft.
Thank you so much to the panelists. I hope it's okay, in order to give you guys time to finish networking and to give Fabienne a few moments to say some closing remarks. We won't open to the public, to your questions now. I think the really important thing that we did notice here is that communication, which is absolutely central and key, it can take a lot of forms. It has to be cool. It has to appeal to young people. It has to be authentic in order to be effective. I think that we have five examples here which were all of those things, and I hope that you have learned as much as I have from their witness. Please give them a big round of applause.